table. Something that is very close to my heart is the development of social and emotional competencies, because when I hear the challenges many of you are talking about, I don't necessarily see those strengths as normalized in the workplace. Those aren't things we ask people to have to come and lead organizations. And you know, when Bill talked about being asked to fix himself, that would be unheard of if I saw a colleague not receiving the knowledge or voice of a young person around my table that maybe I was convening. I would not have that kind of it's not the norm and culture in a hierarchy to go and ask my supervisor or my director or whoever it is to, you know, take some time out for yourself. Plus, I don't even know if they know what I'm talking about. So, I think that's also my feeling around this is, you know, that's where culture can really play a really important role in this process in helping us understand how different people's beliefs and rituals and cultures help them bring that presence, help them to breathe during conversation, help them to be grounded and to hear and listen with openness and compassion. And we don't use that language in our workplaces and bureaucracies. I do not hear it. I've only been in government for 3 years, but I've worked in not-for-profit, and that has not been the language I've heard in the not-for-profit community either. So it's not something that's different. But working in large organizations where you're trying to map hierarchies with a really complex web, complex hierarchies with complex web, you know, more horizontal or multi-directional, I don't even know what the language is, but just mapping that kind of real direct hierarchical relationships in government and what's happening out in the internet technology, ICT technology. So, you know, when you talk about what is it that we need to learn in these organizations to listen to young people, to hear their voices, I think there's a huge, I'd love to hear what some of your experiences are and how you've effectively addressed that kind of personal work that I think, John, you mentioned at the beginning, you know, the work we need to do ourselves so that we can be committed to what we're hearing. And so I think it's sometimes I watch people, they get triggered. You know, Kim, you were mentioning just, you know, being censored, right? And that process of being censored, it's very subtle and it works very subtly. The institution, you know, it has a way of creating these norms, and I don't want to be normalized in that way. So I try to resist myself, but it's very subtle. I watch it, and I'm very concerned that we can't let those voices be there because they're telling us something important. They're reflecting something, but people get triggered, and they can't hear it, and for some reason they don't have those supports for that person to get what they need to be able to listen at the table.
Okay, let's take a pause for a second here, okay? Just a little process check, right? Because we're going to have lunch in a half hour, right?
Yes.
And so we have a chance to really focus in the time remaining. That gives us a half hour here of discussion, right? And I want to make sure that anyone who wants to be heard, so I saw your hand up there as well, right? Is there anyone else who wants to make sure that they have some, and David, okay, good. And Phil. Yeah, and Phil, maybe you want to speak next?
No, I don't want to circumvent the process.
Okay, then let's continue going. And I thank you for making that comment, because I think if we can't hear each other, just person to person, how can we build institutions that can really hear us? And if we don't have a model of just this kind of engagement with each other. So I don't want anyone here not to be heard, okay? So let's make sure that we are living and walking the path, right? And that's how we make it visible.
John,
Please, yeah.
Just 3 simple observations. Going back to for the example of the woman that you said.
Yeah.
It was simple. It was a simple video posted and then a simple solution. Sometimes us as a youth, we want to create social media. We want to do some kind of social awareness, some social change. But sometimes there's so much information. That is the second point. We can sometimes get overwhelmed by it, and sometimes we don't know what to do with it. There's not sometimes so much interest because I don't want to read honestly a 100-page document on something. I want a simple solution, just simple, and for example, and that simple video created awareness. So the youth that posted that video and made a solution created an awareness of bullying. So a lot of people now it's aware of that bullying is wrong, and they took something to maybe compensate that situation. But I think that simple as it gets,
Right.
I think it's better. Or just concentrate that. For example, video, music, on Facebook, on Twitter, just post some simple, we call it in Puerto Rico, a meme. A meme is, you know?
Oh, I think we're not supposed to.
Me.
They're really funny.
You know, it's like a short story in a one picture, and it tells something funny, something shocking, but it can be used as to engage you in just one picture, and that can be another way attractive to share that picture and make them engage and make them aware. So once you got like that picture, they can go for more information that's a little bit more attractive to that kind of public. If we are talking about youth, if we are talking about children, something simple, eye-catching.
Got to be effective. Simplicity's better.
Yeah.
Great.
That's actually a good message from the UN. I know that the reports that we put out are actually quite heavy and readable most of the time. So there's some lessons to learn there for us as well, on how to simplify the message. And that's really the power of social media today. It's really the simplicity of it that makes it so popular.
Right. Keep it short little YouTube video. Right. Dave.
Just a few things. One of the really quickly, just what I find interesting, we talked about this last time, so I want to bring it back in from that earlier meeting that we had last year, the idea of the organizational paradigms and the old system dying out, the new system coming in. One of the things that we see is the sort of interface now between vertical power, bureaucratic power, and sort of power that's delegated down and buttered down as go through in a network, which is a place of a different type of distribution of power that's free association. You're not given a job description every time you go on the internet. You just go where you want to go. You're free to act as you want to act. You're in a free world, and you share information in a way that makes sense to you or doesn't, right? You know, you go where you want to go, so you're free. And the you know, there's a part of me that when I listen to this, I really am interested at the living edge between those systems, systems in particular of vertical power and horizontal power that have been built often with good intention. There's a saying that these big systems, pick healthcare system in Canada, it's the healthcare system is, and people in it are the guardians of one of society's unsolvable problems. We're not going to get rid of healthcare by the need for it. So how do we? And so we sit here in Canada with probably, if I'm not mistaken, and somebody will correct me on this, please, less than 70, probably closer to 60% of our voting population actually went out and voted in our last election. So there's a lack of engagement there. And so going back to that question, I think your question is really critical. What do governments need to learn? What do big systems need to learn? And I'll point to this being a good example of how we, I like to say all meetings are ceremony, whether consciously or unconsciously. We come, we sit around the table, do sort of, act and conduct ourselves in certain ways. By having Bill here taking care of us, we open up a part of our spiritual self. Whether we have, whatever that means to anybody, we open up that there's a deeper sense of being good human beings together that we're trying to struggle to learn. Bureaucracies, and I've come to realize that cat doesn't bark. We are not going to change bureaucracies necessarily by trying to force one way. That we might change power systems and stuff. But the real thing that governments need to learn, I think, is how to gather and how to talk about what matters to us in a way that we can share power and share language and share distribution of those things And often, the living edge of that is that those systems, and I'm an agent in one of those systems, it's incredibly slow to learn these things. Bureaucracies need detailed explanations about how to lift their foot and put it forward into the next, to move forward. They're very slow. So as this network comes about, the networks of all these learnings come about, I have a bit of an ask for the world.
Okay.
Be patient with your governments on some level, get involved, and help them, because as an agent in the government, I work for a very unconscious institution that doesn't know Tuesday from February on a lot of big issues, and it's struggling. And as that happens, I'm not saying we be patient with them as in cut them slack. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying there is a huge need inside of government for us, and I'll be an agent of government. We have to learn how to even get into a room and open up our consciousness. As government agents, how do we open up our minds, hearts, and feelings to join into meetings that are not necessarily driven by policy and data? It's not just changing data, it's changing our human beingness together. And so learning how to gather, how to talk, how to be good to each other. To now understand it has to be, we can no longer be numbers and agents, with job descriptions. We're learning that. So have patience with us.
That is so powerful and refreshing to hear, David.